Matt Eberflus said the Chicago Bears are going to evaluate their whole roster, every individual player, in this extended time they have between Thursday's game against the Washington Commanders and next Monday's game against the New England Patriots. So we're going to go through some changes that we think the Chicago Bears should make while they have this extra time to prepare.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lorin Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Bears. You can like Locked On Bears on Facebook. Join the Locked On Bears Facebook group for even more Bears talk. And make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the little bell on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel to keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. Today's episode of Locked On Bears is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players and whether they'll score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. On the show today, we're using this mini third of the way through the season bye week to look at changes the Chicago Bears should at least consider, if not wholesale make, at this stage of the process. We'll look at the offensive line and trying to find some sort of solution or some sort of step that could bring progress with that group up front. We'll look at this defensive line as well and where there might be some room to get some other names more involved in this process than we've seen up to this point in the season. And we'll wrap up with wide receiver on offense and look at what, if anything, the Bears can do and why the options are a little limited there. And we'll kind of check around with some other options out there that maybe this team could look at outside of the organization as things currently stand. We'd love to hear what kind of changes you want the Chicago Bears to make. Leave us a comment if you're watching in the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. Certainly you can tweet us at Locked On Bears or join in the Locked On Bears Facebook group. Plenty of ways to share. I want to hear what you have to think as far as changes you'd like to see the Bears make with some of this extended time off. But when I look at this offensive line, I think it's about time to make some sort of change. And it's difficult because we know part of the process for this team is saying, yeah, we have some younger offensive linemen and they need to develop and they need to be on the field to develop. And so with that will come some ups and perhaps a lot of downs. And we've seen the result of that. There have been some great moments from some of the younger players, and there have been some really rough moments from some of the younger players. And yet I'm left entering this mini bye week feeling like the player or maybe the position that needs to change right now, I mean, yes, center, but also left guard. Like Lucas Patrick right now is not playing football at a very high level. He has struggled since moving to left guard. He wasn't great rotating with Tevin Jenkins at right guard. And you have Sam Mustipher at center struggling a little bit too. And so I'm a little bit torn because I think the change I want to see first and foremost would be start Michael Schofield at left guard. You saw him come in for, I think it was like 10 plays when Lucas Patrick left against the Commanders. You know, got some opportunity there. Or was that the Vikings game? Regardless, we saw the injury at left guard after Cody Whitehair got hurt and the injury for Tevin Jenkins. So Michael Schofield had to come into that game and play at that spot. And I think that's ultimately what's going to be a better left guard situation for the Bears. What I'm torn at is, do you then put Lucas Patrick at center or keep rolling with Sam Mustipher? Because obviously we've wanted to see better play than what we've gotten from Sam Mustipher, but Lucas Patrick just has not been very good. And so, you know, are you really, how much of an upgrade does that represent? Like, would I rather go with the younger player there that you feel like is still developing and still has moments? Like, Mustipher is not god awful at all times, right? There are moments of like, okay, Yeah, like especially I think in the running game, you don't see it as much, but because of his ability to move when they get those stretch zone runs going, like he can get to the second level and get hands on a linebacker and stuff. He does do some positive things. It's the pass protection where he just gets bulldozed up the middle too often. And would Lucas Patrick at center be a more comfortable, natural position for him? I don't know. It's hard to say like, oh yeah, he's been struggling at both guard spots, but all of a sudden center, he'll just be really good again. Like I kind of feel like maybe not so much, but where I think the upgrade would come more is in the protections at the line of scrimmage and just like some of the snap things that we've seen, last week like against the Commanders, there was that play where Mustipher snapped it before Justin Fields was ready. Like just things like that, like the little things. We've had a couple of those, like I think we had at least one snap exchange error earlier in the season against San Francisco or whatever too. And it's just like the little things there and pass protection and getting the actual protections called on who's the mic and sliding the protection left and right. I trust a veteran like Lucas Patrick, who's been just around more and has been in this Bears offense more with handling the logistics of center more so than him being purely the more consistent, clearly better blocker. That to me is still a little bit unclear, but I would feel more comfortable with Michael Schofield at left guard for sure. And then it's figuring out which of your centers are the option. Because like remember, the whole reason Lucas Patrick didn't start week 1 at center is because the thumb was injured, but he's been playing all season, and the cast has been off since like week 2, right? They kept saying, well, they're waiting for the hand to get stronger and to see if he can snap the ball. Snapping the ball is the big question, but we've reached week 6 now. We're going on week 7, and we have an extra long break before week 7. Is his thumb healed, or is it not going to be healed? Because at this point, like it's been a month since he's been playing. It's been more than a month that he's been playing, but about a month since the cast came off at the very least. So like, what are we doing here? Like, is that out of the question now? Matt Eberflus keeps saying we're looking at everything, but this is the time to really take that hard look at it and make the change on the offensive line to just try and give yourself the most consistent group that you can, your 5 best players. I know a lot of people would say, well, okay, then put Riley Reiff in for either Braxton Jones or Larry Borom. I wouldn't hate the idea, but I'm more willing to put up with Jones and Borum's ups and downs because of the upside that they have. Like, I just feel like we have a little better sense of what Mustipher is, but I think Borom and Jones are getting better slowly, and they haven't been horribly detrimental. They haven't been the ones that have tanked this offensive line. There have been plays where they're at fault and they had a bad play, and that's why the offensive play as a whole died. But if you try to assign blame on the O-line, they come in 3rd and 4th for me, I think. And so let's start with the interior, get that right first, and then see if the Riley Reiff becomes if you want to make that change at one of the tackle spots. But for now, I'm willing to see those younger tackles through because they have had brighter moments in there than those 2 guys on the interior. So that's change number 1 on this offensive line. I also think change is needed on the defensive line, not only to help get the pass rush going a little bit more, but also to help this run defense and make it the life a little bit easier on your linebackers that are clearly struggling a little bit to fight through some of those blocks. So we'll go through a couple of changes perhaps on the defensive line that I'd like to see the Bears take a look at next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Nugenix. Their Total T man-boosting formula increases your testosterone. That's what's in there. It's been validated in 5 clinical studies shown to boost that free testosterone level in men. As you get older, you start to feel a little bit less like your old self. You don't have as much time or energy to work out, but you want the body that you once had. You want to feel like you did when you were younger. But Nugenix boosts that free testosterone that the aging process robs, so you can feel stronger and leaner with more energy, drive, and passion. Well, every product professes quality. Many other products use generic ingredients that are often far less effective than clinical grade, but Nugenix Total T gets you the same clinical potency levels used in the trials, and their formulation is backed by 10 years of science and research. You can get a complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T when you text NFL to 231-231. Text now and get a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, their most powerful fat incinerator ever, with key ingredients to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. So you're getting the Total T and the Thermo. You just have to text the letters NFL to the number 231-231. That's NFL to 231-231. Message and data rates may apply. Terms apply. See available at nugenix.com/terms. Locked On Bears today is also brought to you by our friends at AG1, the makers of Athletic Greens, and they do a great product for you. It's like a multivitamin in a powdered form. You scoop it up, shake it up with some water, and you get to absorb 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole foods sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients that supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, and aging. It really is, I think, the perfect gap for me. Like it fills in everything that I don't get in my regular diet. Lord knows I don't eat as many fruits or vegetables as I probably should. I'm sure many of us have a similar experience. You get busy and, but I always feel like when I take AG1, it really gives me that extra boost and I just feel more complete. I just feel less of that sort of fogginess and I'm just ready to go. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. The Bears need to do something to get this, not only this pass rush going more, but also stop the running game consistently for the first time this season. It is a real problem. And certainly the offense has the bigger problems in the bigger picture. Like the Bears need to score more points. The defense has been able to more so do its job in terms of the amount of points it's giving up in a lot of these games. I mean, some of the points have been a result of, Velus Jones' muff punt turns into a touchdown that against the Commanders that adds the point total, right? But like, it's not always the defense's fault, and they've generally speaking done a fairly decent job, especially, of course, in the second half. They've barely allowed points in the second half this season. And so I don't want to harp on this saying like, oh, the Bears defense is like a disaster and they have to do something to fix the defense. But I think there can be room for improvement here. And the way I see it, I think they need to change up the defensive line rotation a little bit here. That, they do a good job that every game, Trevis Gibson and Dominique Robinson come off the bench and they play a decent number of snaps, right? Like it's a clear 4-man rotation. Looking back against the Commanders, right? I think there were 57 defensive plays and, Robert Quinn played 36, Al-Quadin Muhammad played 37, and then Gibson played 25, Dominique Robinson played 17. So like they're still getting in there for, Robinson played a quarter of the snaps, but I want to change those proportions, right? I want to change those ratios. You don't bench Al-Quadin Muhammad. Like he's not going to play 0 snaps. I'm not looking for him to never see the field because you want the fresh legs to keep rotating in at defensive end. But I do want to lower him in the depth chart in that sort of like, think of it's sort of like a benching, but just not, you're not sitting him down. You're just playing him less and playing the likes of Trevis Gibson and Dominique Robinson more. Because I think the upside is higher with those two players. Al-Quadin Muhammad is not old, but at age, 27, will turn 28. His birthday he's a year and a day older than I am by exact date. That's as I just pulled that up in front of me. He kind of is what he is at this stage of his career. He's entering his prime, but you're not going to unlock some kind of dynamic edge rusher in Al-Quadin Muhammad at this stage. And for the Bears this season, he just hasn't been very good, right? I mean, we just haven't been super satisfied with the level of play that we've seen from him. It hasn't been totally disastrous at all times, but especially in running the game, he can get washed out a little bit, and he hasn't been a very consistent pass rusher, and those are kind of the two big things. So play Trevis Gibson more. Play Dominique Robinson more. Get those younger guys more involved, because even if they're not going to be like instantly worlds better, at least they're learning and growing in the same way we talked about Braxton Jones and Larry Borum, right? Like, I don't know that Gibson, if you gave Gibson 15 more snaps and Al-Quadin Muhammad 15 less snaps, is that going to unlock the Bears pass rush right now? No. It's not going to be the big difference, but I think it will help Gibson and it'll help Dominique Robinson to have more of those opportunities and refine their game on the field against real opponents instead of just having to rotate in lesser snap opportunities. So I do like that possibility. I also want to see something done with the interior of the defensive line. And your options here are a little bit limited, but I really don't think Angelo Blackson has been very good at nose tackle. You'll see him flash a play or two and remember that he exists, but he's not getting much penetration up front. He's not holding blocks very well from the nose tackle spot. He's getting washed down the line of scrimmage or into the secondary or up to the second level, I guess, to where the linebackers are. And, Mike Pennell behind him is okay. And even, Justin Jones, right? Like, he's had a couple of flashes of pass rushing, but not holding up super, super well in run defense. Like, as much as we've talked about how both Bears linebackers have been poor at reading, reacting, and attacking downhill quickly in the running game and fitting it correctly, the defensive tackles and sometimes the defensive ends in front of them, but especially the DTs, have not done them a lot of favors and have not made their job that easy in run defense. You look, and there's not a lot of great options to change things, but one thing I would look at is on your practice squad, you have Trevon Coley, who the Bears brought in, and he showed some real flashes in the preseason, has some pass rushing upside, and his big body. He's started games in the NFL before. He's with the Broncos and I think the Titans before that, and he's experienced and he's shown some flashes. Like, give him a try in the rotation. Again, you're not really benching anybody because it's all a defensive line rotation, but bring him up, see what he can do. Or, I mean, you can look around the NFL, like, former first-round pick Danny Shelton is sitting on the Chiefs practice squad. If you want to go get a 340-pound nose tackle who still has some upside there, like, there are options. I just feel like I either want younger guys getting more opportunities on that defensive line or go get somebody else who can do it, especially if, we start peeking ahead to the trade deadline November 1st, and you wonder if Robert Quinn will still be a Chicago Bear after that. It'd be good to get these younger guys some more reps anyway, anticipating that Al-Quadin Muhammad snaps might increase if you trade Robert Quinn at some point too. So, something else to kind of keep in mind in the back of your mind as you think through what you want to do with this group up front. But it would be nice to see just something different to try and spark something, get the right mixture of players in there to win more consistently than we've seen up to this stage. Again, I don't think it's going to unlock something magical because you're just tweaking a lot of things with the same kind of guys. And one Trevon Coley from the practice squad is not going to fix your entire pass rush. And we saw the Bears go to the blitz against the Commanders and have some real success with it. I like that. I would have said that as a change on this podcast if we hadn't seen it against Washington. So kudos to Alan Williams for trying to stay proactive in that regard. And I look forward to hopefully seeing more of that from this Bears defensive line. I want to jump back with another change on offense, but this one, kind of like the defensive line, it's a little bit tough, and that's kind of why I say it to the end, because it's not as concrete as put Michael Schofield in a left guard, but another one of these feels like you got to do something with the other wide receivers, and we'll go through some ideas, and I can tell you I don't know how much you're going to like them, but I'm open to hearing if you have better suggestions next on Locked On Bears. You know what? Locked On Bears is powered by our friends at PrizePicks, the better way to do daily fantasy. They bring you all of our Crossover Thursday podcasts each week, and they make your daily fantasy experience a lot more fun than the competitors you might be used to. Because unlike the other types of daily fantasy, PrizePicks is not about competing against other people. You are in complete control. You don't have to worry about what somebody else's lineup is that helps you determine, okay, I got to beat their lineup, and you're dependent on how other people are going to bet their lineups. No. With PrizePicks, it's you versus the house. PrizePicks puts projections on all of the players. You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they'll score more or less than their projections, and you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. Those entries, it's quick to make, 60 seconds or less, that easy. And when you're ready to take your money back out, it is safe and fast to do so. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. You deposit $50, PrizePicks gives you $50. You get how it works. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign-up for that instant deposit match up to $100. I said it during the Commanders game. One of these days I'll hit the right button. I said it during the Commanders game that one of the things that was most frustrating, it's like when you have Smith-Marsette and you have Dante Pettis dropping passes and both receivers not really doing much, you really want to bench them, right? I mean, you'd like to have both of those guys sit down for a little while and get something else out there. The problem is the Bears don't have much of a something else. They've got N'Keal Harry just activated off of the injured reserve, so he's representing something, but he was inactive against the Commanders. They put him on the 53-man roster, and then didn't make him active for the game. I don't know why they put him on the 53-man roster. They could have kept him on the injured reserve practice window and not taken up a 53-man roster spot for that game, and could have used somebody else that maybe could have played, but not necessarily that important. Overall, just a head scratcher there. So you do have that option, but is N'Keal Harry going to be ready to be a every down, full go wide receiver on Monday against the Patriots? I think he'll play. I think he'll have some plays, but is he going to play 50 snaps? I would be surprised, given how slowly they brought along Velus Jones on offense. He's the other option in this discussion, but they clearly don't see him as ready for any sort of major offensive role just yet. And maybe this extra 10-day break between games can be enough for him to get farther up to speed. But, against the Commanders, he was on the field for 12 offensive snaps, which was up from the 3 he was on the field for against the Minnesota Vikings in his debut. But he's played 15 snaps in 2 games, right? So maybe he plays another 15 against the Patriots, but that's, a third or a fourth or a fifth, depending on how long the game goes, of your total offensive plays. So he can't be a 1, 2, or 3, because right now Dante Pettis is your number 3 receiver, and Smith-Marsette is your number 4 receiver. And so I think for sure I'd like to see Smith-Marsette on the bench. I don't know that you can, and I don't think that they would put Dante Pettis full on the bench, not playing in this game, because he has scored 2 touchdowns this season, right? I mean, Justin Fields has been very complimentary of him, and he has made some plays. He has not been totally useless, despite the multiple dropped passes that we've seen him make. And just generally speaking, I don't he's a pretty good route runner, but he's not always wide open. And and then beyond that, he's not particularly fast. He's not slow, but he's not fast. He's not tiny, but he's definitely not big. He's on the smaller side of wide receivers. I just don't know exactly what he does to really move the needle for you, other than decent route running. But it's not like you watch the tape and he's just wide open on every play and Justin Fields isn't getting it to him. He's kind of just a guy at this point. The problem is the Bears don't really have other options, because Harry and Velus Jones Jr. are probably not going to be 100% full go options. So you're probably stuck with Pettis there. Your one option here, and I was talking about this yesterday with Larry Dyer from the Bears Talk Underground podcast. You call up Isaiah Coulter or Simba Webster from the practice squad, 2 guys you'll recognize from the preseason, and were around on the team last season. And so they've been around. They've been practicing every single week. They've been catching passes from Justin Fields for 2 seasons. There's a familiarity there. I also think if you're relying on Isaiah Coulter and Simba Webster to come in and save your offense, you are in a bad place. You are in a very bad place, and you are very, very desperate. The thing I come back to is, A, I guess the Bears are kind of desperate at wide receiver, but B, how across the NFL, there's always guys that bounce around the league for 3 to 4 years and never really do anything, and for some reason, they catch on to a team, and somebody gets injured, and they bump into that role, and it's some undrafted player or late-round pick that you've never heard of before, and all of a sudden, they're not Hall of Famers, but they have good seasons. They don't the Cameron Merediths of the world, right? So I always kind of feel when you're this desperate and this low on wide receivers, would it hurt to give these guys a chance? Maybe they're not practicing as well as Dante Pettis practices, and Eberflus has talked about how much they value what these guys show at practice, especially on Wednesday. But is it just one of those things where you put the kid in a game in this offense with this quarterback, and just for whatever reason in the game when it's live and it really matters, it just clicks? And it just happens for him in a way that maybe he hasn't shown you at practice before, but there's just something in there. To me, is it worth taking a flyer on it? Obviously they have to know the offense and be able to run the routes. Otherwise you could just put in N'Keal Harry and Velus Jones, because they don't seem to know the full scope of the offense yet. So there's sort of that caveat that we don't know on the outside how prepared Isaiah Coulter or Simba Webster would be in terms of the playbook and the offense and all that. But assuming they are, because they've been practicing with the team the whole time, why not give them a shot, right? I mean, we saw in the 4th quarter against the Commanders that the Bears had an offensive play out there with Smith-Marsette and Dante Pettis as your wide receivers, and Trevon Wesco as your tight end. They're playing these younger guys a decent number of snaps. Against the Commanders, Smith-Marsette played 25 snaps, and of course Dante Pettis as your number 3 wide receiver, he played 44. So can you take those 25 snaps from Smith-Marsette, try out Isaiah Coulter, try out Simba Webster? They're probably not going to be any good. That's just most likely they're probably not going to be any good. But will they offer you more than the Bears have gotten from Smith-Marsette right now? Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. And that maybe is enough for me to try something different with them. Because otherwise, if you look around the NFL, if you're trying to add another outside wide receiver, like a free agent or somebody on a practice squad, they're not going to be ready to go right away. Still worth looking around, I'm sure. And Ryan Poles always talks about they're always looking around. Like they're always, it's always on their mind. It's one of the options, but like it's not going to be a quick fix to bring in somebody from outside of the organization. Like the name that jumped out at me when I was looking around, Travis Fulgham is on the Green Bay Packers practice squad. So he's been running the Matt LaFleur offense and practicing it this season. So it would be less of a learning curve. Fulgham had been with the Eagles for a couple seasons and had like a 500-yard year a couple years ago. Not a dynamic game-changing wide receiver, but could he be better than what the Bears have? Absolutely. I don't think he could just step in and instantly start the first week you sign him off the Packers practice squad, but maybe he would have a little bit more of a head start than, pick any other available wide receiver as a free agent or a practice squad guy. So it's not pretty at wide receiver, and your options aren't great, but dude, can you do something? Can you just mix it up in some kind of way with personnel to feel like you're not just spinning your wheels and trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? Because, I get you expect different results when you're trying it over and over again with really young players. Again, Braxton Jones, Larry Borum, right? It's not the definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over again and thinking you'll get a different result, because these younger players are kind of growing and moving and learning. But like Dante Pettis is 27, turns 28 next week. Kind of like we were saying with Al-Quadin Muhammad. Like he's not going to all of a sudden become a different player than he is. Maybe you can still squeeze more out of him, but he's not all of a sudden going to become a dynamic playmaker. Like you're not, I don't quite see something spectacular emerging out of him that we haven't seen anywhere in his career up to this point. Like it's different with Darnell Mooney. It's different with Velus Jones. Even Emir Smith-Marsette, to his credit, he's still a really young player and can get better. And I'm not saying permanently bench Emir Smith-Marsette. I'm not even saying don't cut him. Just maybe sit him down for a little bit. Let him keep working in the offense and then rotate him back in there once you see what you have in Isaiah Coulter and Simba Webster, which is probably very, very little. But it's change. And I don't want just change for the sake of change. I do want it to matter and to make a difference. And I do think there is some real value there. Like you don't need to make any drastic changes at cornerback. I think things are settling in there. Linebacker, you don't really have. You're not going to bench Nick Morrow for Jack Sanborn, right? You're not going to, there's not a lot of those kind of options. But I think O-line, D-line, and wide receiver is where I would like to see changes at least explored, even if they're not wholesale changes, kind of like we talked about. We'd love to hear what kind of changes you'd like to see the Bears make with this extended time. Leave us a comment in the YouTube video if you're watching the video podcast, or of course, tweet us at Locked On Bears. Message the Locked On Bears group on Facebook. So many ways to be a part of the show. And make sure that you hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching and following along. That way you're going to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. We'll kind of use this mini bye week as an evaluation time, much like the Bears also. We'll kind of look more at this Bears team. We'll have to talk some trade deadline stuff as well. And before you know it, we'll be looking ahead to the Patriots game next Monday. So keep coming back for more. And thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. Hopefully every single day. Coming back tomorrow, make us your first listen again and get that first opportunity for you to bear down.